All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we are diving deep into a huge class of drugs, benzodiazepines. We're going to cover their names, what they're used for, the big risks, and even the antidote for an overdose. But here's the twist. We're going to learn it all in a pretty unexpected place. The secret to remembering all this tricky stuff is often a simple visual story. And that's where this question comes in. How can a fancy car dealership possibly teach you pharmacology? Well, let's find out. Okay, so I want you to imagine you're stepping right into this super fancy, high-end car dealership. This is going to be our memory palace, a mental map we'll use to lock in all the key facts about benzos. And the centerpiece, of course, is a luxury Benz. Now this right here, this is the absolute bedrock of our whole memory palace. From now on, every single time you see a Benz in this scene, I want you to think benzodiazepines. That one simple connection is the key that's going to unlock everything else. Okay, so how do you even spot a benzodiazepine out in the wild? Well, their names have these little telltale signs, and luckily for us, our dealership has all the clues we need to crack the code.
So check out this scene. It's got all the clues we need for the three main naming patterns. First, I want you to zero in on those pamphlets the salesman is handing out. Next up, peek through that window at the dealership next door. And last but not least, check out that cool-looking color diagram on the wall. Each one is a piece of the puzzle.
All right, so those pamphlets, that's our clue for all the drugs that end in PAM. Think clonazepam, lorazepam, you get the idea. And that sleek Lamborghini next door? Well, that's our hint for the drugs ending in LAM, like midazolam and alprazolam. It's a pretty easy pattern, right? But of course, there's always an exception, and this one's a mouthful. Chlordiazepoxide. So how do we remember that? Look at the custom color diagram on the wall. Get it? Color for chlordiazepoxide? Perfect. Okay, now that we know how to spot them, let's figure out what they actually do.
All right, we've got the names down. Now let's talk about why we even use them. And to do that, I need to introduce you to the main character in our little story, this very, very anxious guy who's trying to steal a car.
Okay, before we go any further, there's one super important concept we've got to get. Benzodiazepines are what we call central nervous system depressants. Basically, they pump up the volume on a neurotransmitter called GABA. And GABA, well, you can think of it like the brain's brakes. It slows everything down, which creates that calming effect. This one idea is behind literally everything benzos do, so keep it in your back pocket.
Okay, let's break down what's happening in this scene. First off, just look at our thief. The guy is a bundle of nerves. That's clue number one. Benzos are used for anxiety. Second, check out the car itself. It's got these amazing anti-shake shocks. That's our visual cue for their use in treating and preventing seizures. And finally, see that empty bottle of booze he dropped? That's there to remind us that benzos are a go-to treatment for alcohol withdrawal.
But, it's not all sunshine and luxury cars here. There are some serious problems at this dealership, and they're going to highlight the major risks that come with these powerful drugs. Let's take a look at what can go wrong.
The absolute first thing you have to understand is that these are not just any medication. Benzodiazepines are controlled substances. And there's a really good reason for that. They have a high potential for abuse, for tolerance, and for dependence. This isn't a side note, it's a headline.
So how do we lock this in? Take a look at that loyalty card from the dealership. You know how a loyalty card makes you want to keep coming back? Well, that's kind of what these drugs can do. They can create dependence. And over time, that can lead to tolerance, which means you need more and more of the drug to get the same effect.
And this leads us to what is maybe the single most important safety rule. You absolutely, positively cannot just stop taking these drugs cold turkey. It's incredibly dangerous. The dose has to be tapered off, slowly and carefully, to avoid some really nasty withdrawal symptoms.
All right, now let's look around this, let's be honest, pretty dysfunctional dealership. You see that salesman who's just passed out at his desk? He's there to show us the powerful sedative effect of these drugs. They can make you really drowsy. And what about that dusty, broken fan up on the ceiling? That's a huge one. It symbolizes a really serious risk, respiratory depression, where your breathing can actually slow down to dangerous levels.
Okay, so that risk of respiratory depression we just talked about. It goes from a risk to a life-threatening emergency when benzos are mixed with other CNS depressants, like alcohol or opioids. This is so important. The effect doesn't just add up, it multiplies. It's an exponential increase in danger, and it can literally cause a person to stop breathing entirely.
So, what do we do if the worst happens? What about an overdose? Well, for that, we're going to turn to the big finale of our story. Our thief is making his grand escape. When someone overdoses on a benzodiazepine, there is, thankfully, a specific antidote that can reverse the effects. And the name you've got to remember is Flumazenil.
So how on earth are we supposed to remember a name like Flumazenil? Well, as our thief peels out of there in his stolen car, the whole showroom fills up with exhaust fumes. You got it? Fumes for Flumazenil. It's a fantastic little trick to remember this life-saving drug.
Wow. Okay, so we've taken a whole tour of our Benz dealership. We've covered the names, the uses, the risks, and even the antidote. And that brings us to this final question. When you think about everything we've just seen, that risk of dependence, the heavy sedation, and especially that deadly interaction with other depressants, what do you think the #1 caution is? It's really about understanding the whole picture. These are powerful tools, but they have to be respected and used with extreme care. And that right there is the key to using them safely. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.